The Greeks settled eastern Sicily in 8th century BC. Zancle, now Messina, Katane, Catania. The Corinthians founded Syracuse around 734 BC, while the Phoenicians retreated to the west, Mozia, now Motia, Solumtum, Panormus, Palermo. Sicily was populated also by local tribes, the Sicani, Siculi, the Elemi, and later the Carthaginians from North Africa. The Greeks brought democracy, philosophy, science, the legend of Scylla and Charybdis, and classical architecture as you can find in Agrigento, Selinunte, Syracuse, and Segesta. The Roman Republic defeated Carthage over 3 Punic Wars for the control of the Mediterranean trade routes. They took control of the Carthaginian city of Panormus, Palermo, in 254 and then Syracuse, despite the efforts of Archimedes to become the Roman seat of power. Emperor Augustus colonized Sicily and the Latin language replaced Greek. The agricultural produce of Sicily fed the Romans, and they ruthlessly put down a series of uprisings by slaves. Christianity also left its mark. Sant'Agata of Catania, St. Lucy of Syracuse, and Santa Rosalia of Palermo. The Romans left amphitheatres in Catania and Syracuse. Sicily was reunited with Italy in 476 by Odoacer under the rule of Eastern Roman Emperor based in Constantinople. Sicily suffered pirate raids by Vandals from North Africa. The Vandals, led by Genseric, invaded Sicily in 440 AD. By 476, Theodoric the Great, the Ostrogoth, controlled the majority of Sicily. Sicily was then a Byzantine island in 535 due to the efforts of Belisarius and defended against regular Ostrogoth attacks. Byzantine Emperor Constans II moved his capital from Constantinople to Syracuse in 663. We now get to the Emirate of Sicily. The Muslim conquest of Sicily began in earnest in 827, and Messina eventually fell in 1042, despite the support of the Byzantine Empire. In 1038 AD, the Byzantines attacked eastern Sicily, supported by the Normans. The Emirate of Sicily brought innovation in terms of construction, art, agriculture, and began to change both the culture and the language. The Arabs introduced oranges, lemons, pistachio, cannolo, lemon sorbet, couscous with fish, pasta con lesade, pasta with sardines. These are all Arabic. By 1050, Palermo was one of the largest cities in Europe, and Al-Khalsa contained the Sultan's palace. Lombard and Byzantine lords hired Norman mercenaries to conquer the Kingdom of Sicily, one of the wealthiest states in Europe. Palermo surrendered in 1071, and Noto was the last Arabic stronghold in 1091. Byzantine Arab Norman style art developed in Sicily. This can be found in the Palatine Chapel in Palermo, La Materana Church Palermo, Cefalù Cathedral and Monreale Cathedral. Mosques and Arabic language coexisted with Latin, Greek and Norman French in a multiracial, multilingual, multicultural island. The Normans introduced a central government under a common law. An unhappy Pope Innocent II excommunicated Roger II in 1139, and eventually his male heirs ran out. In 1084, Constance, a relation of Roger II, married Henry, son of Frederick, Holy Roman Emperor, part of the House of Hohenstaufen. Greek, Arabic and Latin were used in Sicily, French at the Norman court. Frederick II, Stupor Mundi, the marvel of the world, was crowned in 1198 and was supported by Pope Innocent III, as Sicily was part of the route to the Crusades. He revived agriculture, industry and commerce, and his court hosted the famous Sicilian School of Poets. But he was also excommunicated as a heretic. He was an intellectual with an interest in philosophy, science and mathematics. As he died in 1250, Sicily fragmented. The Sicilian Vespers. Manfred, king of Sicily, illegitimate son of Frederick, was very cultured, and also, like his father, he was excommunicated, as Pope Clement IV asked Charles of Anjou, the French king, to rescue papal interests in Sicily. Charles of Anjou wiped out Manfred and his son, becoming king of Sicily in 1266. Charles of Anjou was a very bad and corrupt ruler. The Sicilian Vespers in 1282 was a Sicilian uprising against the French rule of Charles of Anjou. A prolonged European war ensued between Sicilians and the Aragonese on one side, these were known as Catalans and Ghibellines, and the Angevins, the Vatican, the original Sicilian barons, including the Chiaramonte family, and the French on the other side, who were known as the Guelphs. Milan, Naples, Aragon, and the Pope all eyed Maria, Queen of Sicily, and the strategically important island. Maria married Martin the Younger, King of Aragon, in 1390. The Spanish viceroys governed Sicily on behalf of the royal court in Madrid to further interests against Florence, Genoa, Milan, and Venice. Sicily was only used for the production of agriculture. Alfonso V of Aragon commissioned the first Sicilian university in Catania in 1434. Sicily suffered from the Spanish Inquisition in 1487, which changed what was a cosmopolitan, multicultural society. In 1492, King Ferdinand II of Aragon also expelled Sicilian Jews from Sicily. Catalan and Aragonese were spoken at royal court, while Sicilian was used at Parliament and across the wider population. The poor were overworked, hungry, taxed, and without redress in society. The law only applied in the cities. During the Spanish occupation, they frequently rebelled. The Spanish defended the Sicilian coastlines from Barbary pirate attacks. They built defensive towers. Well-connected families competed for their children to marry well or join the clergy, or both. Italian-Spanish aristocratic classes enjoyed flamboyant lifestyles in Palermo, Catania, and Messina. As France began to overwhelm the Spanish Habsburgs, the rulers squeezed Sicily for more. Plague and malaria hit Palermo in 1624, and the Sicilian economy began to collapse. Bread rations were reduced in Palermo in 1644 as peasants flooded the cities looking for food. A Mount Etna eruption in 1669 extensively damaged Catania. The Messina Revolution between 1620, 1672 and 1678 was over unpaid taxation. King Louis XIV sent French troops to Messina to briefly undermine Spanish rule in Sicily. An earthquake in 1693 devastated Val di Noto, Modica, Syracuse, Ragusa and Catania. The subsequent rebuilding was in a distinctive architectural style of Sicilian Baroque, and this is the pride of Sicily today. The Spanish occupation also had other positive consequences. It introduced potatoes, tomatoes, it introduced chocolate to Modica, and Spanish playing cards, which are now called Sicilian. As the Spanish Habsburg line petered out, Sicily was passed between different rulers, including the House of Savoy. Order was always maintained with a foreign garrison, and huge taxes were levied on the Sicilian population. Bourbon Sicily began in 1734 as Charles of Bourbon gained Sicily from the Austrian Habsburgs, but ruled from Naples. Under Ferdinand I, the era of the Grand Tour, rich northern Europeans enjoyed the beauty and culture of Italy and Sicily. The French Revolution broke out in 1789 as bread riots continued in Sicily. King Ferdinand briefly fled to Sicily from Napoleon Bonaparte. In this period, Palermo was the primary port of export for agricultural products, including wine, as well as sulphur, and this was driving Sicily economically. Sicily was also a British naval base in the Mediterranean and used against Napoleon and the French between 1806 and 1814, and this was to defend the Mediterranean trade routes. In 1806, King Ferdinand I of Two Sicilies was forced to accept an English-style liberal democratic constitution. After Napoleon's defeat, the Congress of Vienna restored European monarchs to their former territories. Ferdinand I ruled the Kingdom of Two Sicilies under British protection until 1820, when Bourbon control returned. Constitutional reform was abandoned, causing further unrest in 1820. Prince Francis I of Bourbon fled Sicily for Naples as General Pietro Colletta was dispatched to violently reassert control. Ferdinand II of Two Sicilies promised reform from 1830, but this did not materialise. In 1837, Syracuse and Catania suffered more riots, and Bourbon troops executed large numbers in Catania to regain control. In 1848, another revolt in Palermo saw Rosolino Pilo and Giuseppe La Maza liberate Sicily and restore Parliament, led by Ruggiero Settimo, along with a democratic constitution, and they declared the king subject of Parliament. Ferdinand II of Two Sicilies was unmoved. His forces bombed the city of Messina for 5 days, they sacked the city, and the small Sicilian army was outnumbered and defeated. The British politician Gladstone criticised the terrible living conditions in southern Italy and Sicily. Of course, the British also had an interest in Sicily, the trade routes and the sulphur mines which were used in munitions. Revolts in Sicily continued. The expedition of the 1,000 Redshirts, sailed from Genova with Garibaldi to liberate Sicily and conquer the Bourbon Kingdom of Two Sicilies, and they did this in 1860. King Victor Emmanuel II, Camillo Cavour, Prime Minister of Sardinia-Piedmont, Giuseppe Garibaldi and Giuseppe Mazzini all had different motivations, but all opposed the Bourbons. King Victor Emmanuel II, King of Piedmont-Sardinia, wanted a monarchy led by him, but he feared the French forces who defended the Pope in the Vatican. Cavour wanted to unite Italy and Sicily, ruled by Piedmont-Sardinia. Garibaldi was a celebrity adventurer who promised an independent Sicily as well as land reform. Mazzini was a Democrat, a European politician who sought a unification of Italy. Landing in Marsala, Garibaldi declared, "Here we make Italy or we die," and announced himself dictator of Sicily on behalf of King Vittorio Emanuele II, and Italy became the official language in Sicily. Garibaldi was aided by Bourbon incompetence in the siege of Palermo, where Bourbon forces surrendered to much smaller opposition. Full independence proved unrealistic. Italy was not strong enough to overcome the multiple foreign powers, such as France and Austria. A referendum was held on the unification of Italy, but ignored the question on Sicilian independence. There was no sign of promised land reform. Violent popular uprisings by landless peasants continued. Many in the rural population felt betrayed. Food production could not keep up with the population growth. Tradesmen went out of business, unable to compete with imports from abroad. Strong rural to urban migration across Sicily. As Turin began industrialization in northern Italy, hungry Italians began to head to the north, to move abroad to Europe and the Americas. Organized crime began to profit from exports between Europe and the Americas. Joe Petrosino of the NYPD was assassinated in 1909, meeting a contact in Palermo, Sicily. Fascist dictator Mussolini ordered a massive crackdown on organised crime in Sicily in the 1920s, and many families fled to the USA in this period. Sicily was liberated by the Allies in World War II. In 1946, Italy held a referendum and decided to end the monarchy and make Italy a republic. Sicily now enjoyed semi-autonomy within Italy, had its own regional assembly, but was subject to all Italian laws. Click here to get even closer to Italy and Sicily.